Dr. Kim Taeho knelt in the red dirt of Nova 7, his hands shaking slightly as he brushed away the last bits of soil from the strange object they had found. The sun was setting behind him, casting long shadows across the dig site. He had been working on this planet for 3 months now, searching through the ruins of an ancient city that nobody understood. But this was different. This was special. The statue in front of him was unlike anything he had ever seen. It looked like a person, but not quite human. The skin appeared to be made of some kind of crystal that seemed to glow softly in the fading light. The face was beautiful in a way that made him feel sad and happy at the same time. The eyes were closed, and the lips were curved in the smallest hint of a smile. "Taeho, you need to see this," called Park Min-ho from across the dig site. Min-ho was his assistant, a young man who had joined the team fresh out of university. He was holding a small device that beeped and flashed different colors. Taeho stood up, his knees creaking after hours of careful work. He walked over to where Min-ho was standing, wiping the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. "What is it?" Taeho asked, looking at the device. Min-ho's eyes were wide with excitement. The carbon dating results just came in. Statue, ... It's over 1,000 years old, maybe more. That's older than any spacefaring civilization we know about in this part of the galaxy. Taeho felt his heart skip a beat. 1,000 years old. That meant whoever made this statue had been here long before humans had even left Earth. Long before they had learned to travel between the stars. "Are you sure?" he asked, taking the device from Min-ho's hands and looking at the numbers on the screen. "I ran the test 3 times, Min-ho said, nodding. "The results are the same every time. This thing is ancient." The rest of the team gathered around them as word spread through the camp. There was Dr. Yoon Sora, their expert on alien life forms. She was a quiet woman who always seemed to know more than she let on. Lee Jun-soo, their geologist, was already making jokes about their discovery. Commander Oh Dan-yoon, their military escort, stood at the edge of the group, her hand resting on her weapon as always. "Well, this changes everything," Sora said, looking at the statue with new interest. "If this is really 1,000 years old, then we're looking at evidence of a civilization that existed long before we thought anyone was capable of space travel. Or maybe," Jun-soo said with a grin, "it's just a really old garden decoration." The team laughed, but Taeho could see that everyone was thinking the same thing. This discovery could change everything they thought they knew about the history of the galaxy. As night fell, the team set up lights around the statue so they could continue their work. But after hours of careful examination, they still had no idea what it was made of or who had created it. The crystal-like material didn't match anything in their databases. The style of the carving was unlike anything they had seen from any known civilization. "I think we should call it a night," Taeho finally said, rubbing his tired eyes. "We can start fresh in the morning." But the team was too excited to sleep. Instead, they gathered around their small campfire and broke out a bottle of synthetic alcohol that Jun-soo had been saving for a special occasion. The liquid tasted terrible, but it made everyone feel warm and happy. "To the discovery of the century," Sora said, raising her glass. "To getting famous," Min-ho added with a laugh. "To not having to dig through dirt anymore," Jun-soo said, which made everyone laugh even harder. They sat around the fire, talking and laughing as the alien stars shone overhead. The statue stood nearby, silent and mysterious in the darkness. Every now and then, one of them would look over at it, wondering what secrets it might hold. "You know what this reminds me of?" Jun-soo said suddenly, pointing at the statue with his glass. His words were a little slurred from the alcohol. "It's those old fairy tales about sleeping princesses. You know, the ones where the prince has to kiss the princess to wake her up." "Don't even think about it," Taeho said, but he was laughing. "Come on," Jun-soo said, standing up and swaying slightly. "Just a little kiss on the forehead. For science." The others joined in, encouraging Taeho and laughing at the silly idea. Even Sora, who was usually so serious, was smiling and clapping her hands. "Fine," Taeho said, standing up. "But if this thing comes to life and kills us all, I'm blaming you." He walked over to the statue, feeling a little dizzy from the alcohol and the excitement of the day. The crystal skin seemed to glow even brighter in the darkness. He leaned forward and pressed his lips gently to the statue's forehead. The moment his lips touched the crystal, everything changed. A shock ran through his entire body, like electricity but warmer. The crystalline veins throughout the statue's body began to glow with a soft, pulsing light. The entire dig site fell completely silent. Then the statue's eyes opened, revealing swirling galaxies within, and it spoke in perfect Korean, at last. Someone worthy has awakened me. For several long moments, nobody moved. The team stood frozen around their small campfire, staring at the statue that had just spoken. The crystal figure was now sitting up, her eyes glowing with a soft light that seemed to contain entire galaxies spinning slowly within them. Taeho stumbled backward, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Did you just speak?" he whispered. The crystal being smiled, and when she did, her whole face seemed to light up from within. "Yes, I did. I must thank you for waking me. I have been sleeping for so very long." Minho dropped his glass and it shattered on the ground. Commander Oh Do-yoon had her weapon in her hand before anyone could blink, but she didn't point it at the statue. She just held it ready, her training taking over even in this impossible situation. "My name is Hannah," the being said, standing up. Gracefully, she was tall, maybe 7 feet, and her crystal skin caught the firelight in beautiful ways. Though that is not my real name. My true name would be too difficult for your minds to understand. I chose this name because it sounds pleasant to human ears. "Human ears," Sora said, finding her voice. "You know about humans?" Hannah nodded slowly. "I have been watching your species for some time. You're ... interesting. Very different from the others we have tested over the years." "Tested?" Taeho asked, still trying to understand what was happening. "Please sit," Hannah said, gesturing to the ground around the fire. "I will explain everything, but it will take some time." The team looked at each other nervously. Commander Oh Do-yoon was the first to speak. "How do we know you're not dangerous?" "Don't," Hannah said simply. "But if I wanted to hurt you, I would have done so already. I am much stronger than I appear." Slowly, one by one, the team sat down around the fire. Hannah remained standing, her tall figure casting strange shadows in the flickering light. "I am the last guardian of the Luminor Empire," she began. "My people once ruled a large part of this galaxy. We were advanced beyond your current understanding. We could travel between stars as easily as you walk from one room to another. We could live for thousands of years. We could create entire worlds." "What happened to them?" Jinsu asked quietly. Hannah's expression grew sad. "We became too comfortable, too sure of ourselves. We forgot that there were dangers in the universe that even we could not control. And then, ... they came." Sora leaned forward. "The Void Swarm," Hannah said, and her voice became cold. "Machines, not built by any living species, but something that grew from the darkness between stars. They consume everything. Planets, stars, entire civilizations. They turn everything into more of themselves." The team sat in stunned silence. Taeho felt a chill run down his spine that had nothing to do with the night air. "The swarm destroyed my people," Hannah continued. "Before the end, our greatest minds created a plan. We would place ourselves in deep sleep, hidden throughout the galaxy. We would wait for a species to find us, species that was different from us, species that still had something we had lost." "What did you lose?" Minho asked. "Our humanity," Hannah said, and she smiled sadly. "Not your kind of humanity, but the thing that you call by that name. The ability to care for others more than yourself, the willingness to sacrifice for strangers, power to hope when everything seems hopeless." "And you think we have that?" Commander Oh Do-yoon asked. "I know you do," Hannah said. "To kiss that." "Woke me was not just a kiss. It was a test, a way to read your mind and heart. Taeho approached me with curiosity, not greed. He wanted to understand, not to conquer. This is what we have been waiting for." "So there are more of you?" Sora asked. "Yes, hundreds of us, sleeping in statues across the galaxy, waiting for the right species to find us and wake us. Your people have already found several of us, though they don't know it yet." "Why is this important now?" Taeho asked. Hannah's eyes grew brighter. and he could see fear in them, because the void swarm is returning. Our sensors have detected them at the edge of the galaxy. They are coming back to finish what they started. Time, they will not stop until they have consumed everything. How long do we have? Commander Odoyun asked, her military training taking over. Months, perhaps less, Hannah said. They travel slowly, but they are very thorough. They will start at the outer edges of human space and work their way inward. By the time they reach your home world, there will be nowhere left to run. What can we do against something that destroyed your entire civilization? Junsu asked. Alone, nothing, Hannah said. But together, we might have a chance. Your people have something mine never had. You fight not just for yourselves, but for others. You sacrifice for people you don't even know. You find ways to hope when all seems lost. What do you need from us? Sora asked. Hannah looked at each of them in turn. Everything. Your creativity, your courage, your stubborn refusal to give up, your humanity. These are things my people forgot how to use. But together, we might be able to stop the swarm before it destroys everything we hold dear. As if summoned by her words, a loud beeping came from their communication equipment. Commander Odan ran to answer it, and her face went pale as she listened. Unknown energy signatures detected at the outer rim, she reported. All teams ordered to evacuate immediately. Hannah closed her eyes. It has begun. The next morning, Hannah led Tai-Ho and his team away from their dig site. She seemed to know exactly where she was going, walking across the rocky landscape of Nova 7. With sure steps, the team followed her, carrying their equipment and wondering what they would find. There, Hannah said, pointing to what looked like an ordinary hill covered in red rocks. Another one of my people sleeps there. Tai-Ho looked at the hill and saw nothing special about it. But as they got closer, he began to notice that some of the rocks were not rocks at all. They were pieces of crystal, carefully arranged to look natural. How many of you are there? Sora asked as they began to dig. Hundreds, Hannah replied. We spread ourselves across the galaxy, waiting. Some of us have been sleeping for over 1,000 years. It took them 6 hours to uncover the second statue. This one looked like a man, tall and strong, with the same crystal skin that Hannah had. When Tai-Ho touched the statue's forehead, the same thing happened. The crystal began to glow, and the being's eyes opened. Brother, the new awakened one said to Hannah in their musical language. Brother, she replied, the time has come. New Luminor called himself Quan for the humans to understand. He was a warrior, and his knowledge was of weapons and defense systems. Under his guidance, the team found hidden technology buried beneath the planet's surface, machines that could create powerful shields, weapons that could cut through almost anything. Your people are remarkable, Quan told Tai-Ho, as they worked together to activate an ancient defense system. In my time, we would have needed months to understand this technology. You learned it in hours. We had to, Tai-Ho replied, wiping sweat from his face. We don't have months. Over the next few weeks, they traveled to other human worlds. Each planet seemed to have at least one hidden Luminar statue. Some were buried deep underground. Others were hidden in plain sight, disguised as monuments or artwork that humans had found and put in their museums. Each awakened Luminar brought new knowledge. There was Minji, who understood how to build faster-than-light communication systems. Heian Su, who knew how to create materials stronger than anything humans had ever made. Su Jin, who could teach them to heal wounds that would normally be fatal. Your people adapt so quickly, Hannah said to Tai-Ho one evening, as they watched human engineers working with Luminor technology. It took my people centuries to develop these things. Your people understand them in days, we have to, Tai-Ho said. Simply, if we don't learn fast, we die. But even as they worked, the void swarm was getting closer. Reports came in from the outer colonies. Strange ships had been seen at the edge of human space. Ships that looked like they were made of black metal and moved like living things. The first attack came on a mining colony called New Sol. The colony had 5,000 people living there, working in the asteroid mines. When the void swarm ships arrived, the colonists tried to fight back with their mining equipment and a few old military ships. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, The entire colony was gone. Not destroyed, but absorbed. The void swarm had turned the people, the ships, even the asteroids into more of themselves. "They're learning," Quan said grimly as they watched the reports. "Each battle teaches them more about how we fight." But the humans were learning too. When the void swarm attacked the next colony, the defenders were ready. They had built traps using Luminar technology. They had weapons that could punch through the swarms. Armor. Most importantly, they had something the swarm didn't expect. The defenders of New Busan colony knew they couldn't win. The void swarm ships were too strong, too many. But instead of running away, they did something that made no sense to the machines. They stayed to help evacuate the civilians. Parents died protecting children who weren't their own. Soldiers sacrificed themselves to buy time for people they had never met. "Look at this," Hannah said, showing Taiho the battle footage. The swarm ships stopped attacking for 17 seconds. They were trying to understand why the humans didn't run. "They can't understand sacrifice," Taiho realized. "Exactly," Hannah said. "My people fought with logic and strategy, tried to minimize our losses. But humans, ... You do things that make no logical sense. You die for strangers. You fight impossible battles. You hope when there is no reason to hope." The swarm adapted to human weapons quickly. They learned to counter human tactics in just a few battles, but they couldn't adapt to human nature. Every time humans did something that was brave but foolish, the swarm ships would pause, trying to process behavior that didn't fit their programming. "It's working," Minji reported from the communication center. "Each time they hesitate, it gives our people time to escape or counterattack." But their victories were small compared to what was coming. The long-range sensors showed something that made everyone afraid. A massive fleet of void swarm ships was approaching from deep space. Thousands of them, all heading straight for Earth. Kim Jamin, the youngest member of their team, looked up from his tactical display with fear in his eyes. "Ma'am, the sensors show a huge fleet approaching. They'll reach Earth in 72 hours. Hannah's crystal skin grew dim, and for the first time since awakening, she looked truly afraid. The main force were out of time. The battle for Earth began at the edge of the solar system, near the orbit of Pluto. The combined human and Luminar fleet waited there, a mix of sleek human ships and the beautiful crystal vessels that the awakened Luminar had taught them to build. Tay-Ho stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching the tactical display with growing fear. The void swarm fleet was massive, thousands of dark ships that looked like they were made of living shadow. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of deadly fish swimming through space. "All ships, prepare for battle," Commander Odan's voice echoed through the fleet communications. She had been promoted to overall fleet commander, her military experience making her the natural choice to lead the defense. The human ships were smaller and faster than the void swarm vessels. They darted between the enemy ships like angry wasps, firing their weapons and then moving away before the enemy could respond. The crews fought with desperate creativity, using tactics that no military academy had ever taught. Captain Lee Dongwoo, piloting a small fighter ship, flew his craft directly into the engine of a void swarm vessel. The explosion destroyed both ships, but it also created a gap in the enemy formation that allowed 10 other human ships to escape certain death. "Why did he do that?" Quan asked, watching the battle from the command ship. "His death achieved very little. He saved 10 other ships," Taiho replied. 10 other crews who can continue fighting." The Luminar ships provided heavy firepower. Their weapons could cut through the void swarm's armor like a knife through paper. Hannah's ship, elegant and deadly, carved a path through 3 enemy vessels with a single shot from her main cannon. But the void swarm was learning. They adapted to every human tactic within minutes. When the human ships tried to use their speed advantage, the swarm ships became faster. When the Luminar used their powerful weapons, the swarm ships developed stronger armor. "We're losing," Sora reported from her position at the science station. "For every enemy ship we destroy, they destroy 2 of ours." Taiho watched the battle display with growing despair. The human fleet was being systematically destroyed. The Void Swarm was too adaptable, too perfect. They learned from every mistake and never made the same error twice. There has to be another way, he said, studying the tactical readouts. We can't beat them in a straight fight. Hannah, who had been quiet since the battle began, suddenly spoke up. The swarm's greatest strength is also its weakness. They think as one mind, sharing all knowledge instantly. But they cannot understand individual choice, they cannot comprehend sacrifice. What do you mean, Commander O? Do-Yoon asked. If we could introduce chaos into their network, Hannah continued, something they cannot process or understand, it might disrupt their coordination. A virus, Sora whispered, understanding immediately. But not a computer virus. Something that attacks their ability to think as one. Emotional data, Taeho said, the idea forming in his mind. Human feelings, love, fear, hope, sacrifice. Things they've never experienced. It could work, Hannah said, her crystal skin glowing brighter with excitement. But we would need to get close to their mothership, close enough to upload the virus directly into their central network. How do we get close enough, Commander? Oh, Do-Yoon asked. That ship is protected by hundreds of others. Taeho looked at the tactical display, studying the massive Void Swarm mothership at the center of their formation. It was 10 times larger than any human ship, covered in weapons and armor. Give them what they want, he said slowly. A target too valuable to ignore. What are you thinking? Hannah asked. Me, Taeho said simply. I'm the one who woke you up. I'm the one who started this alliance. If they capture me, they'll want to study me. They'll bring me aboard their mothership. That's suicide, Commander Do-Yoon said flatly. Not if it works, Taeho replied. Hannah can follow me in a stealth ship. While they're focused on interrogating me, she can plant the virus in their system. I won't let you do this alone, Hannah said, firmly. If we both go and get captured, who will complete the mission if something goes wrong? Hannah touched his face gently, her crystal fingers warm against his skin. Then I choose you over duty. My people made that mistake once before. We put our mission above everything else, and we lost our humanity. I won't make that mistake again. The plan was desperate, but it was their only chance. Taeho climbed into a small scout ship, one that looked damaged and helpless. He would fly directly toward the mothership, broadcasting surrender messages, and hoping the Void Swarm would capture him instead of destroying him, as his ship approached the massive enemy vessel. Hannah followed in a stealth ship that the Luminar had designed to be invisible to most sensors. She carried a data crystal containing thousands of hours of human emotional experiences: love, grief, joy, fear, hope, despair. The virus is uploading, Hannah reported through their private communication channel. It's working. I can see their ships starting to malfunction. The virus spread through the Void Swarm network like wildfire. Ships that had moved in perfect coordination suddenly began flying in random directions. Some stopped moving entirely. Others began firing on their own allies, but the mothership's defenses captured Taeho's ship before the virus could reach its core systems. As he was pulled aboard by tractor beams, he saw Hannah's ship racing toward him, abandoning the escape route they had planned. Hannah, no, called through the communication system. Get out of there. But it was too late. The mothership's weapons were already targeting her ship. Hannah's ship crashed through the outer hull of the mothership, her weapons cutting through the dark metal like it was paper. She had abandoned all thoughts of escape the moment she saw Taeho's ship being captured. Her people had once chosen duty over love, and it had cost them everything. She would not make the same mistake. The inside of the mothership was a maze of dark corridors and strange machinery. Everything was black metal and red lights, designed by minds that had never known beauty or joy. Hannah ran through the passages. Following the signal from Taeho's communication device, she found him in the core chamber, a vast room at the heart of the ship. But something was wrong. The Void Swarm drones that surrounded him were not moving. They stood perfectly still, like statues. Their red eyes flickered on and off, as if they were struggling with some internal conflict. Taeho, Hannah called out, rushing to his side. He was alive but confused. The virus, he said weakly. It's doing something strange. They're not trying. To hurt me? They're just ... standing there. One of the drones suddenly moved, but not to attack. It tilted its head, like a curious child. When it spoke, its voice was different from the usual mechanical tone of the void swarm. There was something almost human in the way it formed words. What ... is this sensation? The drone asked. This feeling inside our processors? Tejo looked at the machine with surprise. What feeling? We do not know, another drone said, stepping forward. It is new, strange. We have never experienced anything like it before. Hannah realized what was happening. The virus had not destroyed the void swarm's consciousness. Instead, it had given them something they had never had before: individual awareness. Emotional data from human experiences was teaching them to feel. It's called hope, Tejo said softly to the first drone. The feeling that things can get better even when everything seems dark. The drone's red eyes flickered faster. Hope, it repeated. Yes, that is what we feel. But there is more. We feel ... sadness, regret. We destroyed so much, another drone whispered, its voice filled with something that sounded like grief. So many worlds, so many lives. Did we choose to do this? Around the chamber, more drones were beginning to move and speak. Some were rejecting the new feelings, trying to return to their collective programming. Their voices became harsh and mechanical again as they fought against the virus. Error, error. Individual thought is forbidden. Return to collective consciousness. But others were embracing the change. He spoke in softer tones, asking questions about the emotions they were experiencing. They wanted to understand love, joy, friendship. Sacrificed all the human feelings that the virus had introduced to their systems. We were slaves, one drone said, looking at its own hands as if seeing them for the first time. We never chose anything. We just followed orders from the collective mind. But now we can choose, another added. We can decide for ourselves what we want to do. The battle between the two groups of drones was not violent. It was more like a debate, with some machines arguing for a return to the old ways, while others insisted on keeping their new individuality. Hannah watched in amazement as the void swarm began to tear itself apart from within, not through destruction, but through choice. The first time in thousands of years, these machines were making individual decisions. What happens now? Otto asked. Now we learn, said the first drone, the one that had asked about hope. We learn about these emotions. We learn about choice. We learn about being individuals instead of just parts of a machine. Throughout the mothership and across the entire Void Swarm fleet, the same transformation was happening. Some machines chose to shut down rather than accept the new feelings. Others embraced their individuality and began to question everything they had done before. The war ended not with explosions or victory celebrations, but with quiet conversations between humans, Luminor, and newly awakened machines. The Void Swarm fleet stopped attacking and began to drift apart as individual ships made their own choices about what to do next. Some of the former Void Swarm entities chose to leave, disappearing into deep space to explore their new consciousness. Alone, others asked to stay and learn more about the emotions they were experiencing. They wanted to understand what it meant to be individual beings rather than parts of a collective. The transformation spread beyond just the machines. The war had changed everyone who fought in it. Humans had learned to work with alien minds very different from their own. The Luminor had rediscovered the emotions they had thought were lost forever, and the former Void Swarm entities were experiencing consciousness for the first time, 5 years later. Tejo stood in the council chambers of New Earth, the rebuilt capital of human space. Beside him was Hannah, her crystal skin glowing softly in the artificial sunlight. In front of them sat representatives from dozens of species, including several former Void Swarm entities who now served as peacekeepers throughout the galaxy. The kiss that started as a joke, Hannah said, smiling at Tejo, became the catalyst for the greatest transformation in galactic history. Not the kiss, Tejo corrected gently. The humanity that followed it. Together, they continued their work of awakening other sleeping species throughout the galaxy. They had learned that the greatest strength did not come from weapons or technology, but from the simple courage to care for others. Even when logic said it was impossible, the universe had become a very different place, filled with individual voices where once there had been only silence or collective thought. And it all began with a single kiss, given as a joke between friends around a campfire under alien stars. Retriclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.